Hi, welcome once again to the what I believe to be the 21st Leader Post. Can't even get the intro right.
Geez, you got the number right, but you get the intro wrong.
Leader Post.
Really?
Someone once did a spoof of the newspaper. They called it the Leader Roast. Maybe that I'm still scarred by their parody of my column. Anyway, this is the 21st Leader Post Rider Rumblings video podcast. That's Murray McCormick. I'm me. We're very pleased today to have with us Craig Reynolds. If you're watching this, you know that he's the Saskatchewan-roughriders president and CEO. Craig, thank you so much for taking some time on this lovely Wednesday to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for arranging for the first blizzard of the year.
Well, there's a Dairy Queen across the street if you want a second blizzard of the year.
Okay,
too.
We're here, of course, to talk about the Foam Lake Panthers.
Yes.
How
They're
are
having
they
a
doing?
good season. They're having a very good season. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How's their quarterback? Has he been a worthy heir to the throne?
Very, very worthy. Yeah, very worthy.
Is that six-man football?
It's 9-man.
Nine?
It was 6-man for a bit when I was, I think they dropped down 6-man. It might have been grade 11 or something like that, but it's generally been 9-man football. Yeah.
That's fun to watch.
It is fun to watch, yeah. 6-man is terrible, though, because if you miss one play on defense, it's a touchdown.
Yeah.
So you have to tackle well.
I love it when they have provincials and we'll get the results sent in. It'll be 79, 76.
Yeah.
No, defensive struggle.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Craig, I find it interesting with this weather now, and you and I have discussed many times the CFL schedule being moved up a couple of weeks this year, and we disagree on that. You've called me a traditionalist and trying to change with the times, but
that's what I publicly call you.
I noticed you only have two home games in the last 6 stretch. Is that kind of, you thinking of that way the schedule worked out, that you're not as home as often as during the so-called challenging
Well, that
weather
wasn't
thing?
necessarily by design. I'm happy, and as an organization, we're happy about that because it is a challenge. Like I'll even use this Monday's game as an example. So it's probably the most important game in the standings we've hosted since we opened that stadium. The stadium's fantastic. We've had tons of sellouts. The fans have been fantastic. We've got lots going on, but we've got a couple thousand seats to sell, and I think that with the weather like this, sort of people started look at that and sort of say, it's on TV and those sorts of things. So I think it's a challenge. I think all the prairie teams seem to be aligned on that at the CFL level, and so we continue to work that issue because I personally think it's an important one. I think things have changed dramatically just in terms of the quality of television, etc. That it's just harder to sell tickets in the winter and late fall.
What did 2,000 tickets mean unsold? What do they mean to the team? Like, we kind of that's 31,000. Montreal and Toronto and a lot of other franchises would kill to have 31,000 people. But if you have 22,000 unsold seats, or not there, what does it mean?
Yeah, well, a few things, right? It's just atmosphere. And our team feeds off the energy and the atmosphere at the stadium, and they love when it's sold out, and it's special when it's sold out. I think back to the game against Ottawa where we had the lights out game and those lights,
cool.
And we got a similar sort of thing going this game where we've got thunder sticks and got lots going on. So it's just energy and atmosphere is one. Obviously, there's a massive revenue component to it too. So we miss out on that revenue, and then you miss out on food and beverage, and then even for the tickets you've sold, there'll be people that just from the weather choose to watch it at home, and sometimes it's hard to argue with that when the weather's bad. Although we'd love to have them there, I understand that when the TV and the couch is calling. So it impacts concessions and merchandise, and so there's a big revenue component too. But it's the atmosphere as well. You just don't feel the energy necessarily at the same level, and that's important.
When you look at this market historically, that time of year, the last home playoff game was the West semifinal in 2013, and I'm sure there's 200,000 people now who brag of being there, but that game wasn't sold out, and it was a signature game for Darian Durant.
Yeah.
In '88, the Riders hadn't had a playoff game period since '76. They didn't sell that out.
Yeah, I think it's
'95 Grey Cup wasn't sold out.
Yeah, no, it's a unique situation, and which is why I think we have a compelling argument here. As the games get more important across the league, especially in the prairies, the attendance drops, and that doesn't make sense except for one thing, which is weather, right? And so that's where the argument comes from.
I love November football. And I've told you this, I like the way the CFL kind of can own November, that 4-week span where it's playoffs, end of the season, playoffs, Grey Cup, it builds that time. I kind of wonder with baseball and hockey starting if we might get a little lost, but I also have to say, and you've mentioned that before, I watch from the comfort of the press box, and I've never been cold in a press. Montreal and Winnipeg, I've been cold in the press box. So I do get that I have a little comfier life than others and fans sitting there. But I just wonder, I know we'll get back to football. When you're not talking about completely eliminating November football. It would just be a couple weeks.
No, not necessarily. So they're looking at lots. We're looking at the league level. We're looking at lots of scenarios. So there's a scenario where you would host the Grey Cup in the first weekend in November, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at or the second weekend in November and moving up a couple weeks, which would be two weeks from where it is now. And then you need to look at all options, which is maybe you play it in the last sort of weekend in October, and I'm talking the Grey Cup, which would push the playoffs into this time of year. So lots of different options being looked at, and I think that when you're going to consider a major change like this, you should look at all the options, right?
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about Grey Cup, alluded to it a bit. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the recent news this week about 2020. What made that year one worth circling as opposed to 2021 or 2019 or in somewhere around in that vicinity?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and lots of went into it actually. First and foremost, I think we want to showcase the stadium, and those have been there know how fantastic it is, and we continue to get as visiting teams come, and we do tours and those types of things. People sort of appreciate what a jewel we have here, so we want to showcase that nationally and internationally through the Grey Cup because it deserves to be showcased. So you don't want to wait too long because we opened it last year in 2020 already. It would be 3 years, so you don't want to wait too long. And then one of the bigger factors is our anniversary and that tie-in to our 110th anniversary. So the ability to sort of celebrate all year long and then have that culminating with the Grey Cup game and the Grey Cup festival. And so we just think we could create a year-long party. And the way we sort of thought about it internally is 2013 was so special, and a lot of it was special because we were in it and won it, and obviously that's like every year that'd be your goal. But it was also when we think about how special that was, and then you think about how special 2010 was when we celebrated our 100th and our centennial, and obviously 100th is a massive milestone, but 110th that's a milestone as well. So we're thinking about if we can combine those two events and have a year-long celebration, it'd be a pretty special year. So that was the major thinking behind it.
You've been involved in other, but you're involved in the 13 bid, I think.
Yep.
In 03, were you still a part of 03?
No, I hadn't joined the club. Yeah.
That was your Foam Lake days.
That was I was quite Foam Lake, but I wasn't here.
I'm wondering how different the bid process now, because I don't think it was actually a bid. It was just sort of like, I don't understand the difference, but it seems like the bid process, and plus the Grey Cup game, Randy Abruzzi wants to change the game. He wants Lake Edmonton spending $12 million on the Grey Cup Festival, which is just mind-boggling to me. How has the bid process changed, or what's it like?
Yeah.
I know we know the bid is secret, but just
I can't. Obviously, don't want to talk about it too much, but it has changed. So it is a true bid process. So I think in the past it was kind of you look at rotations and you look at how long you hosted the Grey Cup and who would be interested and what were these sort of milestone moments. So those things were all factored in, but it wasn't. You didn't actually put forth a bid that was necessarily evaluated. You were just awarded the Grey Cup, I would say. Now it's a true bid. So you're bidding against other cities and other teams. And so you need to come up with not only sort of financials and budgets and those types of things, but how are you going to elevate the Grey Cup? Yep. And how are you going to build on what's happening in Edmonton and then what will happen in Calgary and what happened in Ottawa last year? So you really have to put some good thinking into that, and you need to present a compelling case as to why you should be awarded the Grey Cup versus another team. Obviously, you're not comparing yourself directly to them, but you're talking about it. So it's for us, it's telling that story. So it's telling the 110th anniversary. It's telling the quality of the world-class stadium we have, and then it's talking about the facilities in Regina and specifically the Everest Place site. So in our research, it'd be the first time ever that we'd actually planned to host absolutely every Grey Cup event on one site where the stadium is. So you would go to that Grey Cup festival and you would have everything there. And you can do that now with the facilities they have there with the ITC, the new ITC, which is fantastic. And so unique opportunity. And so it's about telling that story, and it's about actually winning a bid. So in terms of the legal evaluate is what's elevating that signature game.
Must be kind of fun putting it in the bid because you have such a wide open suggestion. So let's throw in a zip line. Sure, that's something we can write down. Or let's have a roller coaster. Something you can just because with Randy, I think with Randy's suggestion that he wants to make the Grey Cup the event of Canada, anything is open, isn't it? Any sort of idea?
Yeah, absolutely. And it has been fun. But I think one of the things that's important for us, and I mentioned this the other day on the radio, is just the strength of our bid and the strength of our Grey Cups in the past, I would say. Especially, I was pretty involved in 13, and I saw this firsthand, is the volunteerism that comes out, and the volunteer leadership that comes out, and the ideas that come out of that. So yeah, we've sat around, smarter people than me have sat around the table right now and come up with some ideas, but we've got even smarter people that we would engage once we were successful. So I think what we're trying to balance now is, yes, we've got some great ideas that we think might work. So we want to definitely talk about those in the bid, but we also want to talk about our process, which will be engaging volunteer leadership in this community and in Saskatchewan, and they're going to come up with some great ideas because that's what we want them for. They're passionate about football, they're passionate about our team and our league, and they'll come up with some neat ideas. When
you isolate a year, do you look at it and factor in how much competition there might be, what the field of interested candidates might be?
No, yeah, like I'd be lying if I said no. We completely ignore that. So of course you think about it, but for us it was around the year. It was the 110th, and it was feeling comfortable as an organization, just organizationally, and where we're at with a stadium. So you don't want to host it, and obviously you don't want to host in your first year because you're just figuring the stadium out. You don't even want to host in your second year because you're trying to improve on your stadium experience and you're trying to get the kinks out. The third year you might think about hosting it, but there was a number of reasons why we just didn't feel like that was the right thing. But then by the fourth year, that stadium's already rocking and rolling, and it'll be rocking and rolling even more. So for us, it was the year. It was the 110th, and it was, okay, this is where we feel good about where we're at with the stadium.
You think back to the years in 95, all the reasons why they would say why the Grey Cup couldn't come to Regina back then. Not enough hotel rooms, the stadium was inadequate. What are they going to do for the Grey Cup Festival? And they had a lot of things downtown. 13, we had more hotels and things accepted. Now you look at 2020, and if I'm first to say I get excited about the Evraz place. We have so many hotels now in Regina.
So many hotels.
We can accommodate anything. So the stars are aligning, I guess, to say that it should be a successful bid. I know I may be not allowed to share it because I may do the mic drop after that. Whoever wins the Grey Cup, take quarter drop, retire. Hey, Rob, would that be perfect?
I've been advocating for that to occur earlier.
No, I thought you meant you put retires on my car. I didn't know you mean for me to retire.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. That's a bad joke. Anyway. Sorry, that had nothing to do with
Save us, Craig.
No.
Get me out of this mess.
Before, I can't keep up with the banter. I'm just trying to hold
lucky
my
for
own
you.
here.
Anyway, do you want to talk some football?
Sure. That's ostensibly why we're here.
You're on the road Saturday or Sunday in Montreal, or kind of a closer game than you might have expected. Were you sitting in the press box and the media box going, oh no, what happens if I lose this one? Do you stress over that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'd be lying again if I just said it wasn't stressful, especially this time of year, right? Because you just, obviously we remain as an organization, as a team, focusing on whatever the next game is, but you're looking at the standings and you're looking at the importance of each game, and so yeah, it's stressful. The thing I was really proud of, I guess if I can say that for the team, was how they closed the game out, right? They needed 2 drives offensively to close the game out, and they closed it out. And I think that's been a bit of a theme this year. Like when we need to close out a game, we've closed out a game. I remember BC, and I was in BC. That was the last road trip I was on as well. So I was in the stands in BC, and I was watching that, and we needed a defensive stop, and I just thought to myself, I wasn't stressed out, which was a unique feeling for me because normally I get quite stressed out. But I just sort of said, I just felt the way our defense was playing, we were going to have a stop at some point. We were going to make a play, and we were going to get a stop, and then we had that big third down stop, and we closed out the game. And so similarly in Montreal, except offensively, we just needed to drive, we needed to grind out a few first downs, and we did, and it was great.
That was always the question, or at least it had been for a number of weeks, is could the team reach the point where it wasn't necessary for the offense to be propped up, where the offense could actually deliver in a key situation. And I think a lot of those concerns have been allayed in the last few weeks, and it was kind of building to that point too. It wasn't like Zach Collaros suddenly had this amazing game all of a sudden. You could see week by week that maybe a few more lights were starting to come on. Is that a fair summation of how that offense has evolved?
Very fair. And I think that was, to me, was what I was most excited about seeing, was that, offensively we closed out a game. Offensively we played well the entire game, and then we closed that game out. Like I said, when we need to make plays down the stretch, we did. And you could see it coming, and I think we have so many new guys on offense, and Chris reminds me of that all the time, just in terms of the number of rookies, right? And especially in the receiving core. And so we got a lot of young players in the receiving core. Offensive line, we got 2 new starters on the offensive line, new quarterback, new running back, 3 rookie receivers, and then Josh Stanford hasn't played a ton. So there's lots of newness there. So I think it's sometimes when that happens, as you guys know, it takes some time, but it's nice to see them starting to gel and come together a little bit.
I think we have to retain these thoughts for maybe next year when we go through July and August, when things are struggling and they're looking 2-4 and the world is ending, remembering that somehow Chris Jones gets them to build, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon of getting through the season. And maybe in the summer when Rob is panicking, writing 1,000 words on everything they should blow up and
I'm reducing them to 1,000 words.
That's exactly what I say, Murray. I'm just like, it's a long season, Rob.
It's a long column, too.
So, Rob takes it day by day. He doesn't look at the big picture. He does look at the big picture. But that's what I'm always amazed, because when we get to this point, at least the last couple of years, that, holy smokes, back when we were panicking in August, it's a process to get to this part of the season. And maybe that's what the Riders have done. As you said, the young receivers and young receiving core coming together, because guys like Jordan Williams-Lambert and Shaq Evans and Kyron Moore have really been standing out. And those are guys that, they're bringing along. So maybe patience is a word in Saskatchewan. Can we use that? Is that a 4-letter word in Saskatchewan?
Not around here.
Yep.
Yeah, not when it comes to the Riders, no. But yeah, you definitely, you don't want to be playing your best football in July and August and then tailing it off near the end of the year.
Is that Calgary?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily, but you don't want that, right? You want to be building, and we had the same thing last year. We were playing our best football down the stretch, and we had the same sort of initial sort of, I don't want to say struggles, but we had some challenges sort of early season, mid-season there. But it started to come together, and we started gelling. Similar things this year. And actually it was talking with Chris in the offseason, he wanted to prevent that. He sort of said we need to make sure that those early games, we're winning those early games, because they come back to bite you in terms of standings, right? And I think we all can look at a couple games where that's very, very true. But on the flip side, when we just talk about it specifically offensively, we had lots of change. And so when you have that much change, you're generally not going to come out of the gates necessarily where you might finish if you have the right guys in the change.
I mean, this is a year where I think a lot of people, and quite reasonably, expected this plan to come to fruition, and I wonder if that fostered some of the early season
for sure
apprehensions or whatever that were being felt by the fans or even by a cranky columnist. But internally, when the team gets off to a rough start in a year where you're coming off a season in which you're one play shy of getting to the Grey Cup, and it's year 3, and then there's a loss to Montreal and etc. What was it like, say in August, when the team is in that situation? What's going through your head then?
Well, I think honestly, there's still a confidence, and I think it's because we had and we talk about it, obviously, that's important to talk about it, but I think there was a lot of things that we all understood that were going on, including some key injuries, and so those are massive factors, including the youth and some of the newness and the length of time that was going to take for things. And then even just the strategy, like we knew that defensively we were going to be in the games, most games, as we sort of waited for A, injuries, and B, some of the new guys to sort of develop. And the players that are on the field or that made the team, just given the level of talent that Chris has been able to assemble, they're on the team for a reason, but yet they're new, and so sometimes it takes time. So I think there was just an understanding that this might take a bit of time to kind of get to where we want it to be, and and we're still trying to get better, and there's still injuries, and there always will be, but I think they're coming together at the right time.
What a pivotal time that was, though, that you're coming out of a bye week. The Duron Carter episode happens during the bye week. First Duron Carter mentioned, and it was kind of. It seems to me it was almost make it or break it time for this team. There was a stretch of West Division games. Riders had already lost to Calgary, already lost to Edmonton. There's the bye week. There's that Carter episode, and it's like, okay, so this is when this team had to step forward, when it had to perform. It was sort of a pivotal point in the season where granted it's August, but if you're not going to get on a roll now, you might not have that opportunity. Did you see it sort of at that point where it was really imperative that things change and soon?
Yeah. No, I would say, we all felt the same thing. But what I will say about the team, and we had it, I would say even like last year, when they've had to do that, they've tend to done that. So I remember that BC game last year when we went out there, and it was just, it was a lopsided loss, and same sort of thing. And we needed to respond the next week against BC at home. And we did in a big way. And then we went to Edmonton and we beat Edmonton. So we kind of got on a run. So we needed to do effectively the same thing because, like you said, the schedule just sort of dictated we're playing a lot of West teams. And if you're going to sort of make some moves in the standings, those are the times you got to win those games. And so we had a nice run there, and the team responded. And I think that's been nice to see. When they needed to respond, they've responded. Obviously, you don't want to be in that situation if you can avoid it. But every year there's things you can't control, and it's like Chris and coaches across the league will say it all the time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to go through some tough times. Every single team does it, and you sort of see it. You watch the year. Every single team goes through some challenges, and then it's the good teams that sort of put it together at the end.
It also coincided that Zach Collaros came back at quarterback too from injuries at that time. Mm-hmm. So his, it's not Duron Carter, just throwing the mention so we get a team record 3 mentions of Duron Carter in the podcast, but Zach Collaros' return and progress since then too. And I know it's been slow, and Rob has done a great job of documenting every inch of his progress, breaking it down to the millisecond. But he's been pretty significant. And I know as a CEO, when you think they're going to sign a quarterback like that, obviously they talked to you, did you envision this is the type of game that Zach Collaros was going to have in that progress, or way back in January?
Yeah, obviously Chris, of course we talked about those things, Chris was confident just in terms of having been around Zach and having watched his career and having understood, and Chris is a pretty analytical guy. He looks at stats and records, and he has a big belief in terms of people that have strong winning records and historically tend to win football games. And I think Zach's effectively 7-2 since he's sort of been here. So, he had some tough run there at the end in Hamilton, but Chris sort of had the belief in the type of person he is and how hard he works and the type of player he is, and thought he'd be a really, really good fit. And I was excited because you remember the Zach Collaros of, what was it, 2014? 15. He was outstanding. But he's coming off of a year where he didn't play the whole year, and then the year before coming off an injury. So sometimes that takes a little bit of time, but it's nice to see his progression for sure. And
it was a bit of a calculated risk at the time too, because the Riders led the league in touchdown passes last year, and that ordinarily isn't the case for making a change at starting quarterback. But that's not entirely unlike Chris Jones. He's not one to adhere to convention all the time, and sometimes he does things that on the surface might not seem like that's the normal thing to do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the one thing I'll say about him is he works tirelessly, and he's always looking at ways to make our team better. And I think he just, as much as we had some success last year, and a lot of it in some cases, he just thought that we just needed to, improve our team, and Zach's still a young guy, and that was the other thing is he's still a young guy, got lots of football left. So it's worked out well so far.
So maybe we'll give you a chance to hype up October 8th game, of this Thanksgiving Day game. How important is it for this team, that the last really big rivalry game, I guess, of the season? Or?
Yeah, it's a really important one, because you just look at the standings and where Edmonton's at, and we don't have the season series yet against them, and actually they're ahead, right? They've got a 7-point cushion and won that game in Edmonton, so it's really important to in the standings, and that's, I think, quite evident. But again, you also want to continue to be playing good football down the stretch, and you want to continue to progress, and also at home. We need to. One of the things we talked about a lot this year, and we've had some couple disappointing losses at home, is we need to establish home field as the true advantage it is, because quite honestly, our fans give us a massive advantage there. Like, you guys are there, it's loud, and there's energy, and so we need to we need to get to the point where we're winning those home football games, and it's important for your franchise, and that's how you look at how Calgary historically has sort of finished first every year. They don't lose many games at home, and so because it's hard winning on the road. Like, I know it was a tough, hard fought win in both Montreal and Toronto, but that's hard. That's hard to go to those two places and win. It's hard to win football games in Montreal, and it's hard to win back-to-back Eastern road trips, and so we were able to do that. So, but yeah, you got to win football games at home, and especially important ones like this.
The team is 4-3 at home, 5-2 on the road, and you wonder, is one of those losses. You always wonder if you lose a game at home, if that's going to come back and haunt you at the end. But it strikes me that this is a real opportunity for the Riders to put a stamp on a home game too. It almost feels like a playoff game in October, considering the dynamics and all the just the situation going into it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and that's why it's exciting. Like we haven't controlled our destiny in a while here, to be honest with you, and so we control our own destiny. If we continue to win games and critical games, then we got an opportunity at home. So if you win a home game on Monday, you put yourself in a really good position to host a home playoff game, which is obviously makes it easier on the road to the Grey Cup, which is obviously your goal. So your first goal is always to make the playoffs, and your second goal is to host a home playoff game, and your third goal is to host first place, and your ultimate goal is always to win the Grey Cup. But lots of things have to go your way for that to happen. But when you have the control of your own destiny, that's the position you want to be in.
This is also kind of tough. I know I would look this up. The Riders aren't at home for Thanksgiving Day weekends very often, or as often as they have. Usually, I seem to sense I was on the road a lot. Is there sometime a little bit of kickback that you're taking the Thanksgiving Monday away from the fans to? Or is it a better day to have a game of football?
Yeah,
game?
we haven't heard that, to be honest with you. We haven't heard that. In fact, people have been excited about it, and it's Family Day too, so we've got lots of neat things planned, and some of the Family Channel characters are there. So we sort of position it, and it's great. That's a league initiative, and it's great because it's Thanksgiving is traditionally a family-based holiday, and so we got sort of Family Day, and so the game's an afternoon game, so you can still come to the game, and if you're local, you can get home in time for turkey. If not, you'll maybe have a late turkey sandwich before you go to bed.
Sunday's Thanksgiving Day in the McCormick household. So it's going to be
that's how it was in my house too. Growing up, we had the big
leftovers on Monday.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you'll get a football feast on Monday too to go with the turkey and dressing.
I wasn't gone as far as trying to replicate that atmosphere in Taylor Field in the new stadium. We're kind of almost like a focus group because we're behind glass and we don't really get a feel for how. We can tell that the crowd's loud, we can tell that the crowd is intense, but we don't necessarily aren't in a position to make that comparison because it's sort of a hermetically sealed environment. How has that evolved in terms of the crowd being a factor in the new stadium?
Yeah, it's gone really well. It's different, obviously. Like the stadium is completely different. And we wanted to do some different things too. Like we wanted to replicate a lot of what made Old Mosaic great, but we wanted to sort of create new traditions and do some neat new things. And then just the stadium itself affords a lot of new things. So what I would say is there's a lot of people that just sort of utilize sort of the social atmospheres of the stadium, and so to be able to go and hang out in the corners, and so there's not as many people necessarily always in their seats, which is kind of neat because you can go meet friends, you can go hang out, and you can go socialize, and you can go cheer from wherever effectively you kind of want to cheer from. So that's been a bit of a different dynamic. You obviously couldn't do that in the old stadium. You couldn't really go anywhere. But the roof really makes a pretty big impact for the noise. It's pretty loud in there. But there's some, like, I can't say enough about the new stadium, but I just go back to that lights out game. The ability to shut the lights off and have sort of an arena atmosphere temporarily, and then immediately turn them back on. Like that's crazy. And in the old stadium, it was like literally it was a half an hour before they even got light out of the old lights when you turned them back on. So you couldn't do that. So things like that really create a neat atmosphere, can create a bit of an arena atmosphere. And so it's year two, and I would say the atmosphere in there is second to none in the league for sure. It's very, very, very loud. The old stadium was really loud too, considering there wasn't a roof. But I think proximity is pretty similar. We were there's a lot of things in the design. We were like, okay, we got to make sure it's pretty close and tight. Like we don't want it to be dramatically different. We want to take all the great things from Mosaic and incorporate them into the new one, and then create some new things that were cool too.
The lights would go out in the old stadium, but it wasn't necessarily by design.
That rain game where it took like forever to come back.
Yeah, no, that was crazy.
Craig, we've asked a lot of your time. I'll give Murray one final question before we wheel him out the door and put him on the porch.
I don't want to have a question. Can I make a comment a little bit? Rob has a great column going tomorrow on Phyllis Swan, who was one of the city's icons, and she passed away, and her husband Paul Schwann was the Paul Schwann Center. There's a Schwann conference in football. I know it's not a football, but I think it's a great read, and she was a great lady who passed away. And everybody, I met her once, I think, and I think she hugged me too.
Oh, I love Phil.
So I just, it's not, it's football related, but I think Rob did a great job as.
She was the first female director on
of the
Rough Riders. I mean, her husband was a team doctor.
Yeah.
She was a season ticket holder for 60 years.
Wow.
She was at the 66 Grey Cup. Her and her husband, Paul, flew to and from Vancouver with the team.
Wow.
Yeah, what a great lady.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I don't always read Rob's columns. So I'll read his
This
tomorrow.
one's a really good, but it's also, it ties into the fact that this is the community ties that we have with women like Phyllis and, I think Wendy Kelly, another woman who was impactful in football and this stuff, and they're all part of this city and it's just embedded, the people at the Rough Riders. And I was reading Rob's column today. I thought, this is the cool parts about the Rough Riders is these people who have meant so much to the team.
Oh, absolutely. Like that's the coolest. That's our greatest strength is just the community support and the number of people that have connections to the club and love this club and I'm fortunate enough. That's the greatest thing about my job is I get all these really cool letters and these cool phone calls about how much the club means to them, and it's like and they want the club involved in major milestones. I don't want to spoil it for the people that are involved, but there's a thing on Monday we're doing that's just I was asked to sort of be part of, and I'm just like, that is so cool that they want to do this at a Rider game, right? Or this is an important thing for them. So
it's also a responsibility too, though, to be huge. Carrying that load, that pressure, because that you're not just talking about some football team. This is an embedded part of the community.
No, it means so much, and that's why being part of the community and being engaged in the community is so important to us, and and it's great. And we got a bunch of great guys now who are buy into that. I look top to bottom, like what Willie Jefferson's doing with our Cameco Touchdown for Dreams program, which is we probably don't say enough about what he's doing with that. It's fantastic. And then Zach to come in and Collaros and get involved in how he's got involved so quickly. It's great.
And Joe Van Johnson, another guy doing
so many little things and lots of great things in the community. And he's just doing it because he wants to give back and he loves it, right? And he's engaging with his teammates and they're doing lots of things. So the list goes on and on. I don't want to single out people because it's top to bottom with this team. They really give back.
Sorry, Rob, I know that wasn't a question, but
no, that's I'm glad you mentioned Phil. We've missed her so much.
We could be headed to the Paul Schwann Center maybe sooner or later in our lives. Hopefully not.
I'm probably closer to it than you are, given your recent fitness regimen. Craig, is there anything else you'd like to say? You have the floor if there's something you'd like to say. If you have any songs you'd like to perform for us, whatever you'd like to do, you have the
that'd be the worst
carte blanche
possible thing for your listeners ever. No one would ever listen again hearing me sing. So no, I'm excited. I'm excited about Monday. I would encourage you to come on out, and it means a lot to our team to have that stadium full, and just the energy of as we do the introductions. It's just that never gets. There's not many parts of my job that gets old, but that never gets old. Just to see the crowd rise and the music start on our team, and that's just something special. And so so come spend your Thanksgiving with us Monday. We've got a fly pass. I love the fly pass.
I love them. My Montreal had two, but it's funny, they're from Moose Jaw.
Yeah, they're from Moose Jaw.
Yeah, they go all the way to Montreal to bring the fly pass from. I don't know.
The fly pass and the dogs. That's funny. In these,
love the dogs.
I'm not as deeply involved in sort of the game day production meetings as I used to be, but they know, they always send me when the dogs are, and then when the fly pass is, they know I love the dogs and the fly pass. The dogs are awesome. So
where do you get turkey at the stadium on Sunday? If it's Monday, pardon me. If
that's
you're
a
having
good question.
I
imagine that a lot of our vendors are going to kind of come up with some turkey themed or some Thanksgiving themed food, which is neat. We've got a lot of neat local vendors, and that provides a lot of opportunities. So the food in the stadium is really, really good.
And
it's
craft
really
beer.
Cool. Yeah,
you've opened the doors. And that's a big point, because craft beer is pretty important to beer drinkers, and it's good. Not saying it isn't pill and whatnot. But.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, Molson's been our sponsor, been great, and so we were able to open that up to have a craft corner, it's actually been really
successful. Sell out all the time.
Yeah, it's been really successful. Yeah, it's really good.
Sorry, Rob, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to...
we could talk forever.
We could. Craig, I apologize for 34 minutes and 36 seconds that you've consumed with us. That's
fantastic. It's been fun.
I think that's a record, so thank you for
I know people say time flies when they're with us. I don't know if that's a compliment or is it just the fact that we're so entertaining and engaging that we just...
That can't be it. It's got to be the guest carrying us.
I don't know. I'm sure, like I said, between the banter and the big words Rob uses, I'm just lucky to make out of here alive.
Me too. I know those.
I don't understand half the words he's using.
Well, neither do I. I look them up after I write them. Murray, thank you for once again being with us. Craig, what a pleasure it's been to have you join us. Thanks so much for taking more time than you probably expected to be with us today.
No, it's been fun. Thank you for having me.
Right. So this is number 21, and
Rob, can I just get you to? Sorry to interrupt. Can you just grab that piece of paper and?
Oh yes.
Sorry, that's our producer coming out from the shadows.
We should have the guest read this one.
Yeah.
Please rate us on iTunes and leave a review. It helps us grow the podcast. So there.
Oh, well done. You didn't stumble once.
I nailed it.
And I understood every word you said in that.
I didn't. Anyway, what's a podcast? For Murray McCormick, Craig Reynolds, thanks again. I'm Rob Vanstone, and we'll do this next week, and I'll try and remember the little tag at the end. Take care.